Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today is the first interview of Season 2 of the Disney Lorcana trading card game, and I've got a very special guest, someone that I am talking to for the very first time, a man that you may recognise the name if you saw our coverage of Southside Gaming's event recently, first place with Amethyst Steel, and while we are yet to cover Charlie's Collectable show, also got first place at that event. These are two large, very well-respected events. You get a lot of really good players there. So back-to-back first places is pretty incredible, and this guy has not been on the scene for very long. Seems to be the next big thing in Lorcana, or at least one of them. We're going to be getting to know him and discuss his two first-place Amethyst Steel deck lists. A shout out to the channel sponsor Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's have a chat with Thiago. And here we are, the first interview of the new season post-rotation. We have a man who is making an incredible reputation for himself. I think I'm going to title this the next big thing. It's great to have you, man. So I'm going to yap for a minute to give the audience a little bit of context to this interview, and then I want to let you cook, man, because long-time watchers of the channel will know, generally, while I like to work with as many people as possible and do interviews with as many people as possible, whether you're making a name for yourself as a player, a community member, a content creator, a judge, whatever it is, I like to get to know people a little bit, so I've got some history to go off to add to that conversation. So this is quite unique because this is genuinely our first conversation we've ever had, the 2 minutes before I clicked record, just saying hello. And I want to tell you why I've decided to do this. It's not just because you have had an incredible couple of weeks of Lorcana, first place in two very well-respected events that people know that you get the creme de la creme. You get some of the best Lorcana players in the world attend these events. Those were Southside Gaming and Charlie's Collectable show. I'm yet to watch CCS because I was away at Inc. doing my own thing, but I still plan on watching it back. But we covered your first place deck list when we looked at SSG, running some Purple Steel, and just what an incredible couple of weeks of runs, man. But what really sealed it for me is that when I'm playtesting myself, if I've got an event coming up, because we've got set championships coming up, I want that Maleficent mat, so I've been putting in some work. And I tend to have a few people in the community that I will go to with deck lists, ideas, questions, to think about things from a top tier player, from a top tier level. And one of the people that I will consistently go to discuss thoughts is Zach Bivens, who is a close personal friend and someone that I respect in this community as much as anyone else you want to point at. And whenever I go to him with a deck list or an idea, he always has paragraphs for me. It's never simple, one-liners, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. It's always a discussion. It's always what has your testing found? Have you considered it? There's a lot of depth to those conversations. Bivens is very rarely just play this or just do this sort of man, at least with me. And I've always appreciated that. But recently, because Ruby Amethyst, I'm sorry, my brothers, we're not really cooking at the moment. Give us time, but we're not really cooking, and I want that Maleficent mat. So I've been playing around with some other decks, and played some Blurple at Inc. The weekend just gone, and now since I've come home and I've been on the old Lorcanita, I was like, all right, let's sleeve up some Purple Steel. This seems strong. It seems like it's got the tools, and I started with your deck list that I've got on the screen now that you can see, the SSG deck list. But I did what I always do. I crafted it a bit to sort my tastes and the kind of things I want to see, and I will show you the deck list that I was running with in a little while, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. But I went to Zach with this list, a couple of questions, and his response to me was, I would just play what Thiago was playing. And he has never said that to me ever. It's never been that one and done. So that to me was a huge compliment right from the get-go. So I was like, okay, this man's had a couple of great weeks of Lorcana. You just got about the best endorsement you could possibly get for me anyway. So let's have a chat with this man, get him on the channel, especially because I've never met you, and I think it would be interesting to have an authentic first conversation. So that's the context behind why I've asked you to do this, Thiago. I'm thankful for you taking the time. I know you've got another event that you're going to in an hour and a half, something like that, so good luck for that. But yeah, two first place finishes, both with Purple Steel. I want to talk to you all about Purple Steel and the runs and the deck list, but just for a basis to start off with, can you just tell me, what is your history of Lorcana? How long have you been playing? What got you into it? Is it your first TCG? If you could just give me the basic history from your TCG perspective.
I appreciate you having me on. Basically, I started playing Lorcana at the start of this year, so the entire time I've played, there's not been any DLCs or anything like that. It's been like kind of off season the entire time.
Yeah.
So I've mostly just been playing online, and then dabbling in paper tournaments when I get the chance. But um, my dad has been playing since the start, and he's been trying to ease me in because I like card games, but I've always been pushing it off. No, no, no. And then at the start of this year, I finally bit the bullet, and I'm like, okay, I'll play. And then I got completely addicted. So it's just a complete disaster. I have 0 minutes of free time now. It's the worst. But yeah, I'm been starting playing for uh, 13 years. I started playing Magic, and I played for about 4 years. Then after that, I moved to Hearthstone because my family moved to Brazil, so we didn't have access to like all the paper cards and
Right.
like the same tournaments and whatever that Magic has. So I played Hearthstone for 4 years after that. And then in Hearthstone, I was really, really good. Like I was rank one a lot of the time. Played in all the big tournaments, whatever. But then about 5 years ago, I stopped playing, and I haven't really played any card games since. So when I started playing Lorcana, I got the itch to play again and compete. So in Lorcana, I've been mostly just playing online.
Amazing, yeah. A similar background to what I've heard in the past, and like I can absolutely relate to like the itch coming back because I was a Yu-Gi-Oh man back. That was my first TCG. I'm an old man, mate. I'm going back a long time. I remember before there was a ban list. Like that's how far back I'm going. So that was my history, and like that was playing paper tournaments, traveling and stuff. And then I quit when I went to college and uni because I just didn't have the time to dedicate to both. Not at a high competitive level anyway. But that itch stuck with me. I picked up a little bit of Pokemon trading card game online just because again like the love to play card games, and then getting into Lorcana, and like from my first time going to a first league and just getting amongst that community again, it immediately felt like home. I must ask off the bat, is there like, and again if the answer is no, do not feel bad because I've heard it before, but is there much affection to Disney, or are you just I like a good card, like I like good mechanics, I like card games?
No, I mean I definitely like Disney. Like
Nice.
I would always sit with my little cousins, and then we'd sit watching the like at the end of the DVD, you can like click the different menus. So we'd go into just listening to the soundtracks, and then they'd
Yes.
put Let It Go on in like 14 different languages. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, no. I definitely enjoy Disney. Right when I moved back from Brazil, we lived in Florida, so I'd always like drive up to Disney with my brothers, and yeah, I love Disney for sure. But
Great.
I wouldn't say that I'm like uh 10 hours deep into watching The Great Mouse Detective on repeat, but
Oh, this
I
man
definitely
knows
enjoy
exactly
Disney.
how to hit me in the heart. This man came with prepared.
No,
That's fine, man. Honestly, like, that's just nice to know that there is a bit of an affection there. But but it wasn't Disney. That Disney enough wasn't enough to pull you in. You know, like it was the mechanics of the game that have made you stay, I would presume.
yeah, it was the combination of the two. Is like
Great.
also just not specifically Disney, but like the community that is attracted to the Disney card game is
Sure.
like people that I want to be around. You know, like the people who I've met have all been like unbelievable. So that's like byproduct of it being Disney, but not
Sure.
necessarily specifically because it's Disney.
It's a perk on top that you would expect, and as it turns out, we do just have a very lovely, supportive community. So that's awesome, man. And you have actually officially joined the Southside Gaming team. Congratulations! That team is definitely looking to make an impression in season 2. Obviously, we already have Bivens with third place at Worlds, but that roster looking more and more stacked. So I'm so excited to see what you are all going to bring to Lorcana in the second season. But that puts us on track. I don't want to spend too long talking about your pre-rotation experience. I want to get right into the meat and potatoes of it. Post-rotation, was Southside Gaming your first big paper event for post-Fabled?
For post Fabled, yeah, it was just the day after. It was like a complete mess. Like I felt so bad. I like had convinced Kendall, no, I'm not to go, and then he arrives there and he can't get any Dumbos. So like the entire tournament was just it had all the delays and whatever. So it feels like it was 3 months ago, but it was literally 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that tends to happen in the Lorcana community. But you opted to take Amethyst Steel. No specific question. Please just talk us through what led to this deck choice, what led to like this build in particular. Like, was it a last minute thing you threw together? Was there a lot that went into this? And just talk to us about the deck and the run, what you feel like it does well. We seem to be in a rock paper scissors format at the moment with Amber Steel, Amethyst Steel, and Blurple. Obviously a shout out to Emerald Sapphire that seems to have a place in our meta as well with some good matchups. And I'm sure some, like, again, we've seen like one Ruby Amethyst top, we saw one Blue Steel Allies top. So these are the rogue decks that, sure, they might make a top, but I think our meta feels pretty settled at the moment. So what is it that made you opt for Amethyst Steel? Please talk us through it.
Yeah, so when I first looked at the new cards and what was staying, I wasn't that impressed with what Purple Steel was left with. I thought, like, when you compare the Steel cards you get to the cards that Blurple gets in blue, where they get Sail and Tipo and Hades, like, these cards are unbelievable, right? So I think that my initial instinct was that I was going to start playing Blurple, but Purple Steel is just like a deck that I had played so much of pre-rotation that I was definitely going to give it a shot at least. And then since the cards all got revealed in like 2 days, I had decided that I was going to play Purple Steel. Like, it felt unbelievable. Like, I was probably like 55 of these 60 cards or something had locked in 2 weeks before the set came out. And then I played probably between best of threes and best of ones, maybe like 650 individual games before the set even released. So going into the first weekend, I was like extremely practiced. I was very happy with my list. The night before, I like met up with Zach Bivens and Chuck, and then they like baited me into playing the Skater Mim card. This card was just terrible the entire tournament. Like, I played so many games. I had played so many games and had my list so perfected, and then I put in this card and it was just dreadful. But so that one quickly made its way out of the list moving forward. But yeah, I definitely had a lot of practice with the list.
And okay, so a lot of it was just, again, you were very felt experienced and piloting it. What can you speak to your thoughts as to why you think this deck was just a good meta choice in general? Like, what's it? How do you feel about the matchups into Blurple and Amber Steel? Just at its grassroots. And again, I'm sure when we look at your other list, you can like refer to some changes that you made to help out in that matchup. But just sticking to this list, like, what did you think it was doing well? There's some spicy stuff in here, like Jasmine, which I heard you got given an enchanted version by the owner. I heard the story though, like, if you win with this card, I'll give you an enchanted, and then man goes and wins it. But yeah, talk to us about the list. Talk us about some of the spicy things like the Jasmine.
Yeah, so I would say that the rock paper scissors is kind of less pronounced in this meta than in some before, because the matchups are like very close to even, and then like the play draw just like makes it way more favored so like Amber Steel going first is favored against Purple Steel, even though Purple Steel is like the supposed to beat in the rock paper scissors, and like Purple Steel going first is favored against Blurple, even though in the rock paper scissors it's not supposed to be that way. But obviously if they're going first an equal amount of times, then the rock paper scissors takes its shape. But I think going into the tournament, I thought that I was one of the most practiced players in the new meta. I thought I had probably the most games, if not just among the most. And Purple Steel is the deck that has like the least like failure modes. You always have game into everything, and if you really feel like you're more experienced than your opponent, I think Purple Steel gives you the best way to take advantage of that, because other decks like Blurple, like I was going to play the list that Kendall played to top 4 when he was the 1 seed, except I would have played with Dumbos because he didn't have them. And that deck that deck played like 9 cards that cost 7 or more and are uninkable. So sometimes like you're playing the deck and on 6 ink you'll just draw and pass with 3 cards in hand because your hand is like Hades 2nd star or something like that. So and Blurple, you also have the games where like you just don't draw ramp, so then you're not in those games. Whereas Purple Steel, you're always like at least like 49% into the game, and so if you feel like you can outplay your opponents, it always gives you a chance. I thought there was gonna be more Blurple than like I thought it was just gonna be literally half the room. I thought everyone was gonna play it, but I guess because of the Dumbos, then there was less. I wasn't surprised that there wasn't a ton of Amber Steel. I ended up playing 0 copies of it. In this SSG tournament. I ended up playing it 3 times in the CCS tournament, but in this tournament, I was not surprised that there wasn't a ton. As far as the Jasmine's concerned, it's just because, again, I thought there was going to be a lot of Blurple, and you need cards to kind of contest the evasives, and a card like Belle is like her whole calling card is that she's supposed to like win the evasive wars and whatever. But in my experience, that was not necessarily true when you're playing on the draw against Blurple. And so I thought the Jasmine just being this giant unmovable body is more helpful on the draw against Blurple because I didn't really think I needed that much help on the play.
No, I really liked it. Again, I took this list as a skeleton to do some testing with and made some changes. But the Jasmines I did keep. They felt okay in a couple of positions. I do know that you moved away from them for the next event. So when we look at your other list, we'll get your thoughts on that. But no, I love it. Again, the Bell was the other thing that I felt like so I added more Bell. Let me quickly. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just very quickly show you what this is. What I made out of what you made, and this is what I sent to Zach, and he said, go back to what Thiago was playing. So my thought trails were that Bell I just thought was so powerful so often. It felt game winning a lot of the time, and I just liked having an extra copy of that available in the deck just for seeing it, or if I needed to ink it early. Although that being said, I never really felt ink starved playing this deck. It's pretty good, and like consistency seems to be your priority, just the way you were just talking about Amethyst Steel versus Blurple. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely true. I think it's the most consistent deck in the game. I think if you were to ask somebody, look, the first two tournaments were won by the same deck, what was it? Like, they would probably answer Blurple because it's the most popular deck. But if you were to ask the same person won the first two tournaments, I think the only deck that somebody could have done that with is Amethyst Steel, just because none of the other decks have the consistency to bring you across like multiple big tournament rounds as Amethyst Steel does. So in this list, you cut the roses.
I cut the roses. Yeah,
I've Jafar, a Belle, an Ursula, and a Skater, and then you swapped the one drop count a bit. Okay.
Which is why it was funny when you were just like, oh, they forced me to play the Skater meme, and then it was really, really bad. But again, hey, I want your honest thoughts and your opinions, right? But yeah, I just liked the meme. I liked it opening up easy answers to Daisy if you open with a hook, like genies with Dumbos. Like, there was just some math fixing that I thought was pretty interesting, and I was like, I kind of want to see this card a little bit more. And again, kind of the same with Jafar, because like we don't have a lot of like beat sticks that hit that high. Obviously we've got things like strength, but I really wanted to be able to like deal with the Magic 5 at the moment with like for rhinos and things like that, and I just felt Jafar was helping get so many of our characters into that relevant number, plus being a 2-quester. And yeah, I cut the white roses purely because, again, like the thickness of the free drop anyway. I will say though, before you give me your feedback, I think with this deck I went like 3-3. I then went back to yours and I went 13-2. So I very quickly learnt my lesson. But please, I'd love your reactions to these changes, why they were wrong.
Yeah, well, I don't think that it's a difference in like 30% of your win rate wrong, so I think you should have been much better off with that. I think that's just some.
You could also argue I was getting used to the deck more, right? Like, again, I played like 6 reps and then I changed and did like 15 reps. So maybe that was a factor as well. But yeah, I'd love your thoughts on these changes.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why Zach and Chuck convinced me to play the Skaters. Like, it definitely is very good in some spots. Like, being able to use it against Amber Steel is really, really excellent. Being able to make your evasive on your turn guys be able to challenge their evasives with the extra challenger is excellent. I know they were playing 3 and they love it. So definitely like one of the options that you can play in that slot. The Jafar, I ended up cutting it down to 1 going into the CCS weekend. And I mean, it's because I added Hypnotic, so you kind of get a little bit of the effect, but it's a card that I've played around with cutting entirely. Like for this weekend, I was considering cutting it for Pete's and playing like 3 or 4 Pete's because of the rise of blue-green and just the steel mirrors being able to have priority on Singing Strength of Raging Fire. But it's a card that I came back to because it's just so strong. The way it's statted is like really, really weirdly like important in this meta, and our deck without it is like literally like 45 1-questers. So just having like a card that when you play it quests for twice as much as the other cards in your deck is like pretty important. So yeah, the Ursula, will say I'm probably not that big of a fan of. I
No,
think it's
please.
probably pretty hard.
Don't feel the need to
but-
spare my feelings, right? I need to hear these hard truths. Because, like, in my head, it was just 5th Elsa. Which maybe is just not a good enough reason to dedicate a slot. But just, I felt like, from observing games and the games that I'd done playtesting, it just felt like if I miss my Elsa on play or lose, I'd probably lose a lot of the time. So it was more just wanting consistency into that. But if you tell me, like, it's just not worth the slot, then I absolutely believe you.
Yeah, it's probably just that. I mean, it can definitely be super strong, like just playing Ursula and then tapping down their like Captain Hook or Rafiki or something, then eating it with the Calhoun and gaining a bunch of lore. Like, there's definitely uses for it, but I would say that it's probably just not as good as some of the other cards we can play, especially since in this 5-drop slot we have a bunch of good options between Elsa, Belle, and Jasmine that I'd probably just rather play one of those or the 4th Treasure Guardian or something like that.
Yeah, and assumedly, like, unless our deck just completely conks out on us, then through Mulligan and the draw that we can do, we should be seeing that Elsa more often than not if we know how important it is. So that makes a lot of sense. And what we'll do is we'll go straight from that onto your CCS deck list, where you have indeed made some changes, as you already mentioned, cutting a Jafar, adding a couple of hypnotic strengths, so still valuing those combat tricks, shall we say. And adding in an extra Bell and anything else I might have missed. I think your 1-drops are the same. Talk us through this one and what led to these changes.
Yeah, so I got back from the SSG tournament on Tuesday, and then I had to like catch up on stuff Wednesday and didn't really get to play until I played Thursday, and I was like pretty convinced that I was gonna play Blurple now because I thought the deck was way stronger. I thought a lot of the reason why I played Amethyst Steel in the first week was just because I had so much of an advantage in terms of games played as compared to my opponents, whereas that was not going to be the case the next week, and so I wanted to just play the most powerful deck, which is Blurple. Has much higher card quality than Amethyst Steel does, right? So on Thursday, I just played like 25 best of 3s of Blurple. I just completely jammed it, and I did not think the deck was for me. Like the missing ramp issue, the heavy on inkables, the like play draw disparity when you're playing against like faster decks, it was just not my cup of tea. So then I was actually not even planning on going to CCS, but this Thursday night I got convinced by Kendall to buy a ticket, so I bought a ticket at 11 p.m. and then 6 a.m. on Friday I flew over, and so I didn't play any games on Friday really. I played but while I was on the plane, Chuck and Bivens were recommending me try the 3-mana Dumbo that gives somebody evasive until the start of your next turn.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I guess I'll test this a little bit. So I was staying with Kendall and 2 of the Maelstrom guys, RMB and Humble, who both did exceptionally well that tournament.
Yeah.
Humble finished top 4. By like round 4, the 4 of us were like a combined 16-0 or something, and so they were killing it. But that night, I was like, I want to test these Dumbos, and I only had Purple Steel like sleeved up. The Blurple cards were just in my deck box, so when we were going to play some games, I was like, I'll play Purple Steel. And then I was just like demolishing them in the Purple Steel versus Blurple matchup, which is supposed to be kind of unfavored, and I was like winning a billion games on the draw, and so then I was like, I guess I just need to play Purple Steel. But even though the Dumbo card was bad, then I still went back to Purple Steel because the rest of the deck was good. But I think that didn't really give me time to make any changes, so I basically just like swapped the Skater Mims for the 4th Raja and Treasure Guardians, which was just like what I had before I put them in, and then I made three little changes, which was cutting 1 Jafar and 2 Jasmines for a Bell and 2 Hypnotics. Going into the set release, we kind of saw the Blurple decks move away from Iago, but then going into the second weekend, we saw it come back, and so Iago is a devastating card for us if we only play 4 Strength of Raging Fires, because our Strength of a Raging Fire is generally killing any 4-drop anyway, so it's not really taking advantage of the Vanish keyword. And the card just completely demolishes our deck. And a lot of the matchup is like based around not giving them any Bell value. And with Iago's body, they always have access to Bell. So then the Hypnotic Strengths came in. I was like, maybe I can cut a Jafar. And yeah, that's kind of how I landed on that.
Went very well for you. Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, and your point about Thiago, I very much relate to. That's probably a change I would make if I continued running Purple Steel going forward. Which I don't know. Like I'm a control player at heart, and Blurple is like the new control color, right? So my heart wants to go there, but I've just enjoyed how this deck has felt. It's like it's how you mentioned earlier. Like it always feels like you're in the game and there's something you can do. Even like I've even had some hands where I've missed one drop or I've missed two drop, but like your deck is low to the ground enough that you can get around it. Strength for a Raging Fire in the mirror match just seems like an absolute like how do you feel? I hate the mirror matches. Like absolutely despise them, and it feels the most play draw dependent in the game I've ever felt. Is that accurate, or am I having a unique experience?
Absolutely. I despise the mirror match. I was thinking of changing decks going into this week because I think a lot more people are going to play Purple Steel. The mirror match is so miserable. There's nothing more frustrating in the game. Like I feel like every other matchup I'm so favored, and the mirror match, like it's like depending on who draws more strengths, or like if they draw 2 strengths and 1 genie and you draw 1 strength and 1 genie, you're just never for 1 second in the game. It's so frustrating to play. I 100% agree with you.
Okay, good. And that's something I guess people are just going to have to accept if they're going to take Purple Steel into their events over the coming weeks. But that leads me to what I'd like is something a little actionable that like the audience could potentially take away. So what I'd like to query you on is if we take this as the core deck list, it's some Mulligan tips if you know your matchup. So let's just take Amethyst Steel and Blurple as the 2 prime examples that people are probably going to run into the most. If you know you are on the play with this deck, say it's a top 8, you with a higher seed, you're on the play against, let's start with Blurple. What are your hard alter decisions, and what are some really core hard lines that you think people would benefit to take into respect?
Yeah, so I think your most important card in pretty much every matchup except Amber Steel is Genie and Strength of Raging Fire. These are cards that in previous versions of in previous metas, you would not always keep. Genie was a card you kind of rarely kept. You would only keep it like on the play sometimes if you already had like a 1 and 2 drop. But now you pretty much keep it like always. Like in a lot of matchups, you're literally like, if you're on the draw and your hand is like Genie, quadruple Treasure Guardian, double Elsa, you'll literally just like 1 keep your Genie and mulligan 6 cards on the draw. Like it's really important to have Genie in this meta, so I would almost always keep Genie. I would always keep Strength, and then you're just trying to get your 1, 2, 3 curve around that. Something that I like is playing that I'm going back to. Like I think the only change I would make from this list is trimming a Treasure Guardian for a second Jafar. Right. Is playing when you're playing like 14 or more 3-drops, you can kind of just always mulligan your 3-drop. A lot of times you'll keep your Genie Satisfied Dragon against other purple decks, but other than that, you can pretty much just always mulligan 3-drops, and then you'll get like 1 back in your next like 7 cards that you'll see before turn 3. So it's kind of not that important which 3-drop you get, as opposed to just getting like a 3-drop. So you get a lot of flexibility in your mulligan there. You want Jafar against Amber Steel. He like is insane in that matchup. You want Captain Hook against Amber Steel. He's insane in that matchup. Typically, you want like your Diablo Palace Guard 1-drops on the play and your Calhoun 1-drop like going second, just because the Palace Guard and Diablos gain you a bunch of lore when you're going first, whereas they kind of struggle to do that when you're going second. But yeah, other than that, you're just really trying to get your Genies and Strengths and a curve, and then you kind of your first few turns are generally like they kind of play themselves, and a lot of times you just aren't questing, but it's really like turns like 5 through 8 where the board gets really muddied, and that's kind of where you have to like put your own spin on the game.
Yeah, and does that change much on the draw? Would you still keep Genie and Strength? Does it alter the type of 1-drops that you want a hard dig for, again, specifically against Blurple, and then we'll go to Amber Steel?
Yeah, I think so. Against Blurple, I would just change that. I would also keep the Diablo. I'd also look for the Diablos and Palace Guards going second, whereas in a lot of like the general field you wouldn't. But yeah, against Blurple, those 1-drops are excellent. Calhoun is excellent because he protects those 1-drops from their 1-drops that would challenge it, like their Rafikis and Octopuses and whatever will stay alive after challenging, and then Calhoun's able to eat them. They don't usually have a good response to clean up the Calhoun. So against Blurple, your hands are pretty similar on the play and on the draw. You're looking for a 1-drop that's going to quest a lot, Calhoun. Any of your 3-drops are okay, but the Dragon Genie is spectacular. And then, yeah, sometimes when you're going first, you can also keep Elsa, but going second, I would just look for Genie Strength and 1, 2, 3.
Okay, and now to translate to Amber Steel, but like a kind of a bit more specific kind of line from them that I've become very terrified of, which is the 1-drop, 2-drop, Tiana Pluto, then you turn everything sideways. How do you handle a line like that? Do you build your curve expecting them to do that? Because if they get to the turn where, and sometimes they can even go like give it one turn longer, right? Where they can get the Tiana down, they can maybe Lady and 2-drop, and then they Pluto with like 5-6 bodies, and it just seems next to impossible. Obviously, strength is going to be an important card in that, but like any advice you can give me or the viewers as to how to combat such a wall that Amber Steel can put up.
Yeah, I mean, when any deck gets like their best possible draw going first, it's going to be hard, but our deck kind of has a lot of tools to be able to do that. We have the Captain Hooks and Calhouns, which really, really slow them down, especially with the threat of our Hypnotic Strengths and Jafars or like Lilos that some of these decks have played. And really, the important thing is getting as many strengths as they have Tianas. So as long as they don't have more Tianas than you have strengths, you're typically okay. But the most devastating card in that matchup really is Strength of Raging Fire. Like when they are able to sing Strength of a Raging Fire with their Tiana on the turn that they play the Pluto, those are the games that you really don't have a chance in. But if they aren't able to sing Strength with Tiana, then you usually have enough like attack on your board to be able to make some efficient plays back, considering that like you have 1 and 2 drops that have 3 attack that are able to attack into their Nalas and their Pennies and Ladies and all that.
Yeah, again, especially because if you're strengthening the Tiana, then you've probably you've got to give something up to the Pluto, right? And then invest a second challenge in it. Is triple 1-drops like super important in this? Like over the first 2 turns, is that important just to have the extra bodies, or do you think it's safer to get down a Calhoun or a Tiger?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that that's like flipped back for a couple reasons. So I do think it's better to just play a 2-drop than play triple 1, because your 1-drops don't really have stats. Your Diablos and Palace cards, like those cards are somewhat poor in that matchup because they don't contest anything. And it's not like previous Amethyst Steel where we had crabs to buff those guys. So your Diablo and Palace cards would be like super threatening if you had crabs. But in our list, since we don't play like the Cricky Lilo or anything like that, having just these bodies that don't attack anything on their own aren't actually that threatening to them. So being able to just develop a 3 attacker on the second turn ends up being more important typically than just going wide, because our wide bodies aren't really that threatening to them. But basically, Captain Hook is like a superstar in that matchup, and the other 1-drops are not so much.
Yeah, again, just stats matter, right? The one thing I haven't really questioned you on is the Treasure Guardian, just because I get it, like, right from the beginning. Like, it's felt like I've always got draw off of it. Again, it's one of your fewer 2-questers. The 3 damage is pretty relevant a lot of the time, or sometimes you're boosting it with a Jafar, or in my deck's case, one of 3 Skater Mims. So I felt like I get those numbers. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the Treasure Guardian. Just overall, the deck has felt super consistent. And yeah, like, again, I think when I spoke to Zach and he was like, just go back to Thiago's this, one thing he did say was like, the White Rose is just extra 3 drops. It means you can alter away your 3 drops a little more safely for the one of preference. Something like, again, you mentioned sometimes the Satisfied Dragon is important to find against the purple decks. The Jafar can be important to find against the Amber Steel decks, but White Rose, again, it does what it's passive lore gain. It can sing you strength, and yeah, the deck has felt a lot more consistent since just switching back to, it wasn't this list, it was your first place list, but nonetheless, it's felt really good. Let's just very quickly round off on blue-green. Do we need to be scared of it?
Yes, absolutely. I think the blue-green matchup is super, super tricky. I think like blue-green and the mirror are the matchups that I want to see the least. I think moving forward into this weekend, there's going to be a lot more blue-green, and yeah, I'm definitely terrified. I think the list that Jeremy and Zan were playing is like really insane against us, where they have 4 Baymaxes, 4 Scrooge, 4 Under the Sea. They have a lot of different shift lines to play the Under the Sea as early as turn 3. It's a super, super tricky matchup. I think you have to play around them having the Baymax shift to rush and value trade your guy as as early as their turn 3, and that means that you're not able to quest, because if this does happen, you just lose the game on the spot usually. So you have to play a super, super slow game against their deck that's built to play a super slow game. But I mean, that's the strength of Amethyst Steel, is you can kind of play any sort of game. And so you have to just keep using your Treasure Guardians and your Genies to like cycle these bodies and keep putting out threats that eventually, hopefully, they're not able to answer anymore.
While still playing around, like, assumedly, like, wanting to play around them having heads held high under the sea and you still having enough resources to then reapply a board. But yeah, it seems like a super tight line to walk. You think Pete might be, if someone wants to play this and they're expecting a lot of blue-green, Pete, is that a reasonable card to help out? Is there anything else that you could, like, again, if someone was really expecting to see a lot of it in the room, how could they change this deck, or would you just advise they change the deck?
Probably that. You probably should just play something else. I think the Pete's should be excellent against them, but then when I was testing, they were just like, in the matchups where I wanted Pete's that I put him in my deck for, he was just not even performing that well. So, I mean, I think if you knew your room was going to be a ton of blue-green, it's probably still worth it. But I think overall, the Pete's were kind of poor for me. But also, this hands held high card just has heads held high cards randomly has this text where you can just select any number of characters to heal 3, and so they can just vanish all of your illusion for no reason. I didn't even know this was happening. Randomly, my board disappeared. I'm like, what happened?
Rescue Aid Society, brother. Yeah, okay, so pretty clean answer there. If you're expecting a lot of it, then you should probably go off of it. So this deck is really looking to take advantage of the Blurple and the Amber Steel decks in the room, which from your experience, this deck should have a good matchup into. But I think also important to emphasize is, you've said it a couple of times, your reps were really what contributed towards you thinking that you could pilot this to that level. So do you expect that to change as time goes on? And like, do you think we'll see more or less Amethyst Steel? Or maybe the better question is, at Ink, there wasn't a single Amethyst Steel in top 16. Why do you think that is? It was 1 Ruby Amethyst, 1 Blue Steel, 4 Amber Steel, and everything else was Blurple. Why do you think Amethyst Steel did poorly at Ink?
I mean, it can be a lot of factors. It can just be like bad variance or whatever. But I think that the result in Ink is going to be somewhat representative of what this meta is moving forward. Even in like the SSG event, Amethyst Steel was 25% of the meta. And even though it converted to be 25% of the top 8, it's like Zach and myself. It's players who like have always played Amethyst Steel, are very experienced with it. And I think in Ink, it was also like about a quarter of the room and got 0 copies in top 16. I think it's going to be one of those decks that like a few people who really, really grind are going to be able to get the best out of it. But if that's not the case, then you're just playing an underpowered deck compared to what Amber Steel and Blue-Green and Blurple are able to do. So I think that the Ink is certainly exaggerated. Like 0 in top 16 when it's a quarter of the room is like kind of crazy, but I think that it's not going to be too far off of the norm moving forward.
Got it. Okay. So, but again, I think that is a super important thing to emphasize. Of look, hey, if you're a newer player, or even if you're an experienced player, but just not with this deck, maybe better to go for something that just has more of a high roll, like Blurple has this higher quality of cards for you to do unfair things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they pick up Purple Steel, they just, like, every single game, they end with, like, 17 or 18 lore and 0 cards in hand, and then they're like, well, I didn't top deck my burn, but it's, like, being able to squeeze out, like, 2 or 3 extra lore throughout the game, or, like, get slight advantages, and I think that's just always going to be the case in a deck that's like 44 one-questers or something.
Sure. I mean, and I've had that experience a couple of times where like, I lost a game because I quested Diablo too soon and lost a strength number. And then I have won a game specifically because I took the quest and that lore really mattered. Amazing to chat with you, mate. You've got another event today. I'm not going to be... Is it a 1-day event or a 2-day event?
So it's split 2 events over 2 days. So today, Friday, is a 5K, and then tomorrow is a 1-day 15K CCQ.
Okay, I'm not going to be releasing this video until the end of your day. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're running today? Yeah,
so I am playing Amethyst Steel again because I've played 6 games this week, so I didn't get to practice. Like the last 3 weeks have been kind of brutal. It's like I traveled since that set came out, and I had gotten those like 650 games in. I like traveled for 5 days, was home for 2 days, traveled for 4 days, was home for 2 days. I'm traveling for 5 days, so I'm not really having any time to like really iterate upon the deck or whatever. What I am gonna try today is to play Rafiki's instead of the Palace Guard, and then make a little mix of the Treasure Guardian and Dolores Madrigal, just because my illusion count's going down. And then if I do very, very badly today, I'll play Green Steel Chromacon tomorrow.
All right, very cool. All right, awesome. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat with me, man. Really appreciate it. Great to have a first conversation with you. Last two things I want to ask you before we let you go. One of them is, I already mentioned at the beginning, is there any affectionate towards Disney? And you said there's some. I like to ask all my guests for a favourite Disney film, a favourite character, and a favourite song. But even if you've just got one of those, that's also fine. So just to learn a little bit more about your Disney geekiness.
All right, I'll say my favorite movie is... Wow, that's tricky. I'll say Moana. My favorite character is Belle, and my favorite song is I've Got a Dream from the Tangled movie.
Very good choice. I love Tangled, man. I think that's a top tier list, and that was super quick. Final thing for you, mate. Any shout outs, any thank yous, any plugs, like whether it's for you, your family, your team, content creators, maybe. Can we expect content from you at some point in the future? Is that on the horizon? Just what's in the future for you, my man?
So, I mean, first off, thanks to my team, Southside Gaming. I'm really excited to be a part of what they're putting together now. I, after last weekend, had a lot of options, but there was never like 1 second where I doubted where I was going to go. To me, it was a no-brainer that I would join Southside. So I'm excited for what me and the team are going to do throughout the season. Yeah, shout out to my family who are like the most supportive ever. I mean, my dad was literally the one who told me to play this game, and he's been there the entire step of the way. So huge thank you to them. Also to my local scene. We're killing it up here in the New England area. So I think having a nice local scene is like the most like radicalizing thing to make somebody love this game. I think it's just like so important, and yeah, I would probably not be playing the game still if I didn't have the scene that we have up here. So shout out to all of them. And moving forward, I don't know, I think there's a Metafy on the way. I think it's kind of tricky to fit in with everything, but after this weekend there's like a 6-week break for us in NA, and like I didn't get a ticket to go to Bologna, so that's probably gonna be happening before the DLC season starts. And other than that, I'm not 100% sure what content would look like, but we'll play it by ear.
And that is it. A huge thank you to Thiago for taking the time to come and talk to me. This was very last minute and pretty early in the morning for him. He went straight from this interview to his event in Denver, which I'll be keeping a close eye on, and this seems to be a player to have your eyes on for Season 2. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support, and we'll see you soon.